Kia ora koutou, ko Littlefair toka and hey, it's great to be here with you all. I will reiterate Ryan's thing. Men in the room, we have work to do. The gender equity is frankly appalling. So thank you to the ladies who have come out this evening to come and sit with us. But I'm here to talk to you this evening with three different hats on. So, as Ryan's already said, I'm the Chief Digital and Technology Officer at Kiwibank. I've been a CI since 2008, so it's not my first rodeo, and mostly in banking, but I did do a bit in the dairy industry because it's a very important element of this country, and so gave up sort of bank accounts and cybersecurity concerns and whatever to go work with dairy farmers who worried about bank accounts and cybersecurity, so it wasn't really that different, but it was good. I'm also the chair of TUANZ. If you don't know who TUANZ is, we're the Technology User Association of New Zealand. So we used to be the telco user community, and so TUANZ had a big part to play in dealing with things like number portability, so the fact that you can now keep your mobile number and move that around. We had a big part to play in that, and also a lot around the fibre rollout around the country. But we've expanded because we felt nobody was filling the gap for technology. So we see telco as a key part of technology, so we haven't abandoned our telco roots. But one of the mission statements we have is the equitable use of technology across New Zealand, because there is a growing digital divide. And so I would like to talk to you a little bit about open source in terms of technology communities. And then finally, as Ryan mentioned, I am a hobbyist as well. So I do have a family that I do occasionally spend some time with, not very often, but as Ryan said, during COVID, I heard this IoT thing was quite fascinating. I got pretty interested in ESP32s, if you haven't played around with those, in the sort of early days. And she was a friend of mine whose son was a star footballer whose coach was looking for something to help train young footballers. So he kind of came up with the idea, and I kind of got involved with the code and the hardware. I am originally a C++ programmer from way back in days of Borland, if people can remember that far back. So I wrote C++ in London. Moved to New Zealand in 1998 and sold my soul and moved into management. So for all you engineers out there, keep coding, because you literally, thank you. All good. So anyway, I promised I wouldn't take up too much time because we've got things to talk about. Great, we're here with Ubuntu. I just wanted to show of hands. So how many of you are using other distros? Okay, all right, about half. One of the things I'm always fascinated in this open source community is the tension between community and effectively scale or commercial or corporate, or call it what you like. When I decided that, because to be blunt, I spent most of my career on Windows. Hi, I'm Paul, I'm a Windows user. And it's fair to say that they still dominate the commercial world, right? Every CIO job I've had, we've had Windows in our corporate, and nobody has been brave enough yet to make the move. And I'm really fascinated as to when that will come. And so when I decided that I wanted to run a Linux distro to keep my hand in, Mint was too close to Windows. It wasn't a big enough bruise. I wasn't techie enough to go to Arch. Anyone running Arch? Yeah, there you go. Well, there you go. That's the true tech bros in the room. But Ubuntu appealed because it had the largest community, right? And that's what's made Ubuntu really, really successful. And so, I love the argument about Snap. I could have predicted it would come up. Absolutely, it's the main thing everybody wants to talk about. And look, I respect different people's views around this sort of stuff. But to be blunt, there's lots of distros out there, right? So if you don't like Snap, then go somewhere else. But the reality is most of us are using Ubuntu, and I was fascinated when I first put WSL in. What's the default? Ubuntu. It's the default, right? And so, this is the largest distro community, right? And so this is the one that I think the world is backing. And you know, I'm sure Canonical will be pleased to hear me say it, but long may that continue until it doesn't, right? Eventually, you know, they put a foot wrong because it's a competitive world out there. And so, you know, there's been a few times along the years where we all thought Microsoft was going to drop the ball, and they've suddenly sort of reinvented themselves and kind of just come back in again. At the moment, I'm busy installing Ubuntu onto computers that won't run Windows 11. I'm not sure Microsoft's had a really good thought about that, because there's plenty of really good tin out there, which they're going to turn off in October. So I think there's some, you know, huge opportunities to do that sort of piece. But you know, my challenge is that, you know, I see what Canonical does with Ubuntu, and I think it is moving more and more to becoming a commercial grade piece of software that companies like Kiwibank can run in our branch network for our development teams, for our user community. To be blunt, still not quite there yet, frankly, and that's why I use it. So, you know, things work most of the time, but occasionally you still have to, you know, go down, you have to open the terminal window, you have to do those things, and until we get those sorted, that's not going to work for me, right? But that's a challenge, because for a lot of people in the community, that's what they love. Because they love being the techie, expert, detailed engineer that understands what SUDO means. You know, most users don't, right? And don't deal with those sorts of things. And so I think, you know, we have a challenge. So, you know, I'm very pleased to be here as part of the launch of Ubuntu in New Zealand, and I personally am hopeful that the work that Canonical does means that it becomes more and more relevant, because I think that community kind of has to grow. And I think the challenge you'll have is, you know, you need to get Snap working and default and standardize on it, because that's the way that this thing will continue to move forwards. I think there will continue to be hundreds and not thousands of distros, right? So, you know, if you don't like it, then you'll kind of need to move. You know, I'm also, you know, love the idea that we can take a lot of the older tech, especially for our communities, and we can start, you know, putting Ubuntu around our tech communities, because, you know, I talk with MOE, I'm just up to talk to one of the ministers, Penny Simmons, who's just taken over as the new Minister of Technology, and one of the things I'm very concerned about as an immigrant Kiwi is the digital divide that's, you know, coming out. And so the one thing I wanted to say to you all here is that, you know, it's great that you code, that you spend time, you know, either work with these things or whatever, but if I could ask you to get out into your communities and help people, because we see the way the world is going. I think New Zealand is an amazing country to live in, but at the moment things are a bit, you know, how many people have just been told they should move to Australia? Yeah, seriously, you know, I mean, we hear it in the media all the time. I'm here because I don't want to move to Australia, to be blunt. I love this country and I love New Zealand, and you know, I think if we want this country to continue to lead the way, I think tech is a fantastic opportunity, because with tech, it doesn't matter that we're at the bottom of the South Pacific, right? It's, you know, with the internet, we can put distros in. We have all these great startup companies. You see what Rocket Lab's, you know, done for rocketry, right? You know, what could we do for our tech community in this country? So with my TUANZ hat on, I would encourage you. There's coding clubs in schools. Anyone work with any of the local code clubs? Yeah, a couple of people. I mean, seriously, please. You know, if you don't, that's fine. And everyone's busy and they've got things to do. But if you hadn't thought about it or you hadn't considered it, please get out. And I think this could really help, right? And this could really help us, and once again help grow the community, right? If this is what kids are using in school, then when they come into their careers, they'll be saying, "Hey, why have you given me this other OS? Why aren't I using Ubuntu?" Right? And it will help grow that community. Finally, as a hobbyist, so I did build a soccer system using some lights. Ryan wanted me to bring it so you could all have a run around the thing. I have a couple of prototypes. We actually built it during COVID, so it's pretty dated now and it's a bit old. And unfortunately, we were lined up to go and show it to a club in Germany because my friend's son had actually got the opportunity to go and do a season with a division club in Germany, and then COVID hit. And so, like so many other businesses, in the country, that opportunity just sort of evaporated, right? Everybody kind of went into lockdown. The challenge for me was that I then got a job at the BNZ and got very busy. From I remember when I was a developer, I just thought the managers were a waste of time and had no idea what they did. And I was the one who wrote the code, so I'm the only person who does anything around here. But I can reassure you that the senior roles are quite busy, so I haven't had a lot of time to get it up. And the other problem is that 8 football lights that are about this high wouldn't fit in my overnight bag. So it's about 40 kilos worth of gear to sort of move around. So fine for the team van, but not really good when you're flying up and down the country. So I was going to do a video in the garden, but I have to just be very honest with you, I didn't get around to it. So I'm sorry about that. So no slides, but anyway, so that's just a bit of an overview of who I am, what I use Ubuntu for. I think it is a fantastic community and certainly has my support to continue to grow, and it's fantastic to see you all here this evening. So I suspect, Q&A over beers, Ryan?
We can do Q&A over beers, we can do...
Well, I think we should have Tony up if we're going to have questions, because any technical things he can answer and any really easy questions. Any easy questions I can answer.
I'll run the mic and you hold the other one. So, any questions for... I'll look right at the back of the room always. There's a question.
Thank you. My name is Sean. I'm working in architecture. So just curious your opinions on sovereignty when it comes to cloud and geopolitical. And here we're in the bottom of the South Pacific.
Who would you like to answer that one?
I was actually thinking Kiwibank perspective actually.
Very, very topical. And again, from an economical perspective, because we're based in Europe, we see it exploding. Particularly in Europe, data sovereignty all of a sudden has, with tariffs and with orange men, have just opened the window for people to realise their dependencies may not be ideal. And like when the government of France says we're no longer using Microsoft, it kind of says a few statements. So there's a huge push for data, not just data sovereignty, it's just a whole app, data, everything. And that just doesn't,
sovereignty, isn't it?
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that the hardware is physically here. The US Patriot Act can still apply even in hardware here. So it is a huge concern, but there's easy ways to approach that. And I mean, governments have to make some pretty big decisions, but every company themselves can make that decision too. I'm working with a startup in New Zealand that are trying to do a medical device right through the US, but they want to keep the IP in New Zealand. So they've set up separate companies specifically, and all their IT is going to be here, and they will have devices in the US that only go to AWS in the US, but the source is here. So there's ways of addressing it, like the IP itself is actually a huge thing, because if it ends up in the US, potentially they could lose that. So it's not just the data, it's the IP as well. And there's a lot of developers in New Zealand. But I think Paul's experience, particularly in banking, will be really interesting on that one at the moment.
Cool. Well, maybe, do you want to go?
I mean, just one really quick thing is that this is where community comes in, right? You guys, potentially all of you, some of you understand why this matters. Lots of people don't understand why this matters. Talk to people, talk to your family, talk to friends, talk to your local MP. Think really carefully when you vote. Like, this stuff does matter. It's really, really important for the long term. And so it's up to the people who understand this to make sure that other people understand as well.
Thanks. It's a wicked problem, right? It's a great question, and it's a really wicked problem, and nobody has a good solution to it. The issue for me is, once again, I think it's at odds with the internet. I mean, the way the internet was founded, it was supposedly borderless, right? I mean, the whole concept of the internet is, originally when you went to a server, didn't really matter where it lived, right? And so when the internet was invented off the back of ARPANET and all those other things, right? And now suddenly all this geopolitical stuff about sovereignty comes in. And so the way we're dealing with it at the moment, because to be blunt, and I know I've got friends from AWS and people here, but there's still not a meaningful cloud presence in New Zealand, despite what what the vendors tell us, is we deal with encryption at rest, right? So we don't worry about where the data lives, we just worry that it's protected to the best of our ability, right? But the Patriot Act applies outside of the US, so just having your stuff in Australia doesn't mean that it's safe. The other issue is with cyber. I'm not convinced that actually people haven't been around most organisations and harvested data already. They just haven't acted on it. So you don't know that you've had a sort of crypto issue. And so, I think it's going to be, a huge challenge. And you see the European Union, for example, working very hard to create their own cloud infrastructure because they don't want to be based on US clouds. The final thing I'd say around it is, with TUANZ, I have a lot of discussion with people around AI and stuff. And, I talk to our Maori communities and they're saying, okay, so translation into Maori, where does that live at the moment? Because you can go into ChatGPT and ask it to give you stuff on Maori, and that ain't coming out of any New Zealand system, I can tell you that now. And so, there's this whole view, well, actually if we're gonna have sovereignty of anything, should that not be some kind of thing that we have sovereignty on? And yet, nobody seems to have any idea about how to deal with that, how to protect it, how to move forwards. And so I think we have some real wicked problems. And the stuff we're seeing in the world now, everybody's just getting more isolationist and more, this is my patch. And how do I deal with those sorts of things? So yeah, I mean all I can say to you, and it gives you some reassurance as always at banks, is we're pretty confident that your data is safe and secure. But most of the banks ain't running it here in NZ, and I think the challenge of thinking we're going to have to be some massive global data center, I just don't see how. We're trying to invest, but you've already seen the pushback in the US, and so the data center they're opening in Canterbury, they're saying it will use 25% of the power of Christchurch. So if you're down in Christchurch and your electricity bill doubles because the data center's opened up, how are you going to feel about that? And that's what people in the States are, dealing with at the moment, right? Seriously, they're opening massive hyperscale data centers next to communities, and their power bills are doubling. And so now people are saying, hey, I'm not into this AI thing, and I'm getting impacted by it. So I think there's whole lots of challenges. So I'm sorry I haven't really answered your question. It's a great question, and I think we're just going to have to work our way through it as best we can.
So I'll ask the last public.
Sorry, we got a hand up.
We'll save that for conversation. I'm going to ask one last public question, and then we'll have beers and then more pizza, and as much discussion and questions as we like. There is a gentleman from Catalyst in the room. There's Catalyst Cloud. Probably OSS might have their own as well. 2 Degrees have launched their own sovereign AI. Has anyone ever thought of collaborating and putting 17 bank budgets together, an airline budget together, and building something locally that would provide what was needed, not just close enough, but what is needed to replace the big Americans? And that's an open question to anyone in the room, not just the three at the front and the pressure on the guy from the bank.
The answer is yes, and I couldn't get support for it.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up there, unless there's any final comments. That can be a discussion for everyone over pizzas, which I've shut the lid on, so that they stayed cold and yeah. But please, if we could put a round of applause together for our 3 speakers. And if we could put a round of applause for everyone in this room tonight at the Double N inaugural launch event. That's you guys. Yeah, thank you very much. And with that, I invite you to come and have a drink. We now.
A round of applause for Ryan as well.
That was just for that great last question, eh? So again, please grab some drinks. We do have some soft drinks now. We ran out at halftime and got some soft drinks and obviously some pizza. But please enjoy the conversations and enjoy the discourse, the debate. hypothesize about what could be, because that is open source and we are community. Thank you.